Okay, we seem to be ready to go. A reminder to everyone, I think everyone on here has done this before, that you can type your questions. I'll watch out for that question signal I get if there's a typed question, and of course at the end of the call we'll unmute everyone so that people can have an open chat if you like. When you do type your question, that gets recorded in our log of our session, so it makes us able to easily go back and have a written reference of your question. So we really like having it done that way, and it also reduces the noise of the call. So away we go. All right, a little bit about volunteer referrals. What is a volunteer referral? So referrals are generated anytime someone applies for a volunteer opportunity. That means someone from the public clicking on, yes, I'd like to volunteer, but it also could be a staff person creating a referral manually by clicking Create Referral. Either way, that's what we consider a referral. Someone says that they want to apply for a particular position, they fill out a small form, and that information gets emailed to a number of people, and also we get a record of it, and that record of it is our referral. And all of the things we'll be talking about today is how we manage those referrals. I think what most people aren't aware of necessarily is before 2008, all we had was the email. There was no record stored of that application. All that happened when someone applied, first of all, staff couldn't do an application on behalf of someone. That feature didn't exist. And when a member of the public applied for a position, all that happened was an email was sent to that volunteer with the contact information for the opportunity. An email was sent to the contact person at the agency if they had provided an email, and an email was sent to the record administrator. That's it. So if that email went astray, there was no record of that referral request ever even have been made. So this is the fact that we even are tracking these referrals is actually a relatively new feature that we only just put in place a couple of years ago. Okay, when we did put that in place, it was intended to just be a starting place on which we knew we were going to need to build more features. But the most important thing was to start keeping a record of those things, both for statistical purposes and so that we would know if something went wrong. An example being recently when we found after a software upgrade that one of the 3 parties wasn't getting their email. And we knew, because we had a record of that referral, who had received an email and who hadn't. And we were able to go back and regenerate those emails because we had those records. In the past, we would never have known that happened, and even if we did, we would have no way to go back and correct it. So even what we put in place now is a pretty ginormous step in terms of what we used to do in the past. Also, the ability to generate statistical tools about those referrals is a really big part of what we've done. So I'm going to go into what I have up right now on my computer. Is very slow today, I apologize, is a bit of our referral management area. So this is where you would go to see those referrals that get put into your site. And we'll go through today a little bit about the searching of the referrals, viewing them, and all of that process, okay? So as I indicated earlier, when a user applies, oh, I've got a question. I'll just take one moment here. Someone's asking about the PowerPoint. So the PowerPoints have been up since, I think, this one's been up since Monday. So if you go into the resources section of our website, there's a folder just for the version 3 project. And each of these sessions has a PowerPoint associated with the number of the session, and they'll always be up no later than the Wednesday before the session. So that's where you would find it, Sharon. I can even show you on our CIOC website here. If you go to resources, my slow computer. I'm getting a new computer today, though, so that's okay. So CIOC version 3 project documents. You'll see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're on session number 5 right now. All right. So as we indicated earlier, when a user applies for a position, we still do the emailing that we have always done. So if the user who's doing the application provides an email, they would get an email sent to them. If they do not, they still get instructions printed on the screen about who they should get in touch with about the position. So even assuming that person didn't provide an email address, they're still given on-screen instructions about you should contact, you know, so-and-so at this organization, and here is their phone or email or whatever contact details we have about for that position, for that agency. And then an email is sent to you as the manager of that record to let you know that a referral has happened. And if the contact person for that opportunity has provided an email, then they would also receive an email with the details that the volunteer has provided. So that goes out to all three parties, assuming they all have provided an email. If they don't provide an email, then this is where we start to run into an issue. So let's say we run into a case where, although if you're on the internet, one assumes you have an email, but if we run into a case where that user doesn't provide their email address, they don't have a record emailed to them of that contact information, so they're relying on whatever gets printed on the screen. Even worse is if the agency hasn't provided an email for that opportunity, they are not sent any kind of notification about that application. So they do not know it even took place if they haven't provided an email, or if, let's say, their spam filter caught the email or something happened like that, they have no way of knowing that application even happened. So that's something we know is a deficiency of relying on emails for this type of communication. Emails are not reliable. They're simply not. They get caught in spam filters. They go off into the void. We don't even know where sometimes. It can fail for any number of reasons. So we do know that relying on email is a risky business. What we do have on behalf of the record administrator is that entry in our referrals table, which allows you to have an ongoing record that that application took place. Next. What we do, or what we have done in order to highlight that application may require some follow-up is every referral that occurs is automatically flagged for follow-up. Okay, so every time you receive an application, either generated by a staff person or by a volunteer themselves, a potential volunteer themselves, an applicant, I call them in this document, it automatically starts out flagged for follow-up. So in our referral management area, if I click on referrals requiring follow-up, in some people's databases where they do not do follow-up, every referral they've ever gotten is going to appear in this list, hundreds or thousands of them potentially. The idea of flagging it for follow-up is that it allows you to take a moment to review that application and ensure that the volunteer agency got notified so that they know that an application took place. The degree to which our members actually interact in the process of application varies. So some of our members are highly involved in the interaction between the applicant and the posting agency, and some of our members are not involved at all. So they have zero involvement. They completely rely on the applicant and the posting agency to do manage any communication between them. They do not find out whether that relationship was successful. They really have zero involvement. And for those, that is I have thousands of applications all flagged for follow-up because I've never gone back and actually done anything with it. But for those who do sort of pay attention to each referral, the idea here is you'd be able to go into that referral, see who got notified, find out if you need to be in touch with that posting agency so that they know that that person applied for that position and so on. Referral records are also available to the volunteer if they have a volunteer profile. So if they sign into their volunteer profile and use that at the time they applied for the position, then when they log into their volunteer profile, they would see a list of the applications that they submitted. So they have a partial access into that volunteer referral record, but they don't have access to certain parts of it. So for instance, I'm going to go into an individual referral record here. They have access to information about when they submitted it, but they don't have access to your outcome notes or what you have said about the placement. They also do not know anything about your contact record, either with them or with the posting agency. So that's all private to you as the managing agency and isn't visible to the potential volunteer. They have their own placement and outcome notes that are also private to them. So if they state that a position was a successful placement in their own profile, that doesn't come back to you. If they type anything about outcome notes in their profile, that isn't visible to you. It's private to them. It's not information that you have access to. So there is a division there of what you both share, which is the basic record of the referral, and then anything that's follow-up or notes placement information is at the moment completely private, both to you in your successful placement and outcome information, and them in their successful placement and outcome information. You have no visibility. Make sure I touch everything here. Okay. So when I was speaking earlier about knowing whether a person has been contacted, this is the area in which we do that, our position contact and our volunteer contact. So in this particular referral, I can see that the position contact, meaning the posting agency, was last contacted on January 16th by phone. So I know that there has been a certain degree of contact with this agency about this position, and the last time I contacted them was by phone on this date. But the volunteer in this case was never contacted, meaning potentially they didn't provide their email, the email wasn't successful. There's lots of reasons why that could have happened. In my database, they will never get contacted because I don't have emails turned on. So in my test database, they're never going to receive an email because I have emails blocked. So this gives you a record of knowing whether or not that actually happened. And you can update that if you have further contact with them. Okay. So we can do some searching and some follow-up type activities on our referrals from our referral management area, which admittedly is quite basic at this point. One thing we can do, which I've already shown you, is our searching. So we have some predefined searches, things that have happened recently in the last 10, 30, 90 days, and of course referrals that are flagged for follow-up. We can also do some custom searches within a particular date range, belonging to a particular organization, the position title, the volunteer name, whether it needed follow-up, and who owns the record. So if I'm looking for a volunteer named Chris, pardon me, I'm again in my bad copy of the software here. I'll do a simpler one that doesn't involve full text searching. My broken copy of the software is awesome. Okay. I have test database up just for this purpose. So allow me to go in the test database, which I'm not sure what we have for content, but we'll give it a shot here. No matches. I'll say modified before the first of this month should give me something. There we go. Okay. So the search results look just as they did if I was doing a search from one of my predefined searches. So either way you get your results, doesn't matter. They all take the same format. That format is 1, a follow-up flag, 2, information about successful placement. So in this search here I have X, that means that was not a successful placement. If I have a green check mark, it means it was a successful placement. I have the referral date, the position title, organization name, volunteer name, and so on. I can click on any of these to sort my results. So if I want to sort by successful outcome, let's say if I had, I'll go to my main menu here, one with actual placement. If I want to sort by all the successful placements at the top, I can sort by successful placement. You can see it brought the successful placement to the top. and then sort by referral date. It'll reorder them and so on. And you can, if you click again, it does it in opposite order. So you can see this was ascending and this was descending order, and that applies to all of the columns. So that allows you to manipulate your search results a little bit. You can actually do some actions on all of the records in our search results, or some of the records in our search results, using these two options. We have follow-up flag editing and email follow-up. Our follow-up flag editing is in particular useful for people who maybe do not individually go into each referral as it comes in. If they wanted to be able to clear all of the follow-up flags at once, I can do check all and add or remove the follow-up flag to all or a selection of the records at once. I can also add a brand new follow-up flag to those records if I need to for some reason. I can also switch this over to the email follow-up. I'm going to uncheck all and pick a few here. If I do email follow-up, there's two ways that I could do an email follow-up. I can send to the organization or send to the volunteer. So if I send to the organization, that means the posting agency. It's going to look up the contact information for each of the positions that are in question. I can make any subject I want, any message I want. So I can say, we're unsure of the outcome of these particular applications. Can you follow up with us to let us know whether any of these applicants were successful, or whatever information it is you might like to communicate to this posting agency. It's automatically going to list the referrals for you based on the ones you've picked, and then you can close your message again with whatever you want. And the same can be true for that volunteer. So if you wanted to do a follow-up once a month or once a quarter with all your applicants and say, you know, here's the list of all of the referrals that you, or all of the applications that you submitted, you know, from January to March of 2010. We would like to follow up with you to find out about your experience with these agencies, blah, blah, blah. And it would list all of the referrals that you had picked, which in this case would be for that time period, January to March, and give you the ability to get some information from them, whatever information you need, since this is a completely open message, and hopefully have them respond to you and give some kind of feedback back to you. So that's all built in that you do on a bunch of records at once. Okay, and we obviously saw earlier as well that we can edit any part of the volunteer referral record, anything that we want. So successful placement information, but also the information that was actually submitted about it, so the date of request, contact information for the volunteer, and so on. The issue here is, let's say I find out that this email that Chris has provided here is wrong. Completely incorrect email. Even if I correct it in my system so that my record of this person's email is correct and any future emails that I send out to this person are correct, that doesn't in any way get communicated to the posting agency or the volunteer, so they have no way to know that I updated that contact information or those notes. It only updates my copy in my referral record. Okay, I have a question, so I'll take a moment here. Sharon would like me to review again how to send out a mass email or an individual email with the links to all the referrals they created. Absolutely, I can do that. We actually have the time for that today, which is nice when we have small sessions. So this tool works on a number of records at once. So let's say I'm looking for a particular volunteer and I want to follow up with, oh, right, my full text search doesn't work here. And I have, okay, so Susie Jones. I'm going to go back to my referral main menu. I want to follow up with Susie Jones. So I've done a search for all the applications that Susie Jones made. If she had done many, it would have the whole list. If I wanted to find out how many she'd done in a particular period of time, I could put a date range in. So I could say, show me all the ones from the 1st of December to the 1st of January, and it would only bring up that time range. So whatever criteria I want to use to bring up a list to work with, I can do. But there's no need to do one volunteer at a time because the system is built to manage many volunteers at once. So let's say I just bring up all of them. If I do this entire process to both of these potential volunteers, which in this case is Reva and Susie Jones, and I do an email follow-up to them, send to volunteer. It's going to create, oh, they have no email addresses. Let's do it in mine. Oh, the challenge is working with test sites. There we go. We'll do it in mine because I know this part of it works. It's going to send individual emails to each unique applicant. So it's not like I have to go one at a time and do these. It's going to send them uniquely based on the fact that these are individual people. It's going to recognize that these are not the same people and send individual emails. So Chris Lambacker is not going to receive an email listing Kate Lambacker's referrals. Okay, so the system will automatically divide those into different emails. You don't have to worry about that. You would then compose whatever you want for the content of the message. In the middle where it says referral details is where it's going to list the position they applied for, when they applied for it, as a list, basically, so that they can see exactly which referrals or applications, I guess, you're talking to them about. And then whatever you want as the closing part of your message, you can put in here. You can preview it and so on. So So here's a preview of what it's taking the first, a random sort of message out of here to show you what it's going to look like. So this is who's sending the message. This is the recipient. This is the subject. And you can see this is what it tells you about the referral. So the date of the referral, the position, and the organization, and then whatever you put as the closing. Okay, so it's automatically going to construct that email for you and then send it. Likewise, if I did one to the organization instead, and I do the same. In this case, this particular position, 2 different people applied for it, so or this agency. So it's telling them, here's the position. These happen to be the same position, but let's say they could have 2 different positions, so it's going to be all of the ones to the same contact person, the same position. So it's going to automatically put every single one of the applications in the date range that you specified, any of the ones you selected. So it could be for an individual volunteer or a date range or ones meaning follow-up or whatever your criteria was to pick those. And those are the ones that it will include in the message to them. And again, even if you do many at once, it's going to divide them up so that each message is only going to have the content for the recipient. So if I have 2 completely different organizations, 2 completely different postings, they're not going to get each other's listings, even if I do it at the same time. Another question? Okay, I have a question from Sharon about how about by date. Yeah, so from our search, you can put whatever date range you want in. So usually that's how you would do it. You know, here are the applications you received in January of this year. Can you follow up and let us know, whatever. Kelly is asking, is there any way when we send out the bulk email that it could update the volunteer profile to say we contacted the volunteer by email? Well, Kelly, it does that. So yes, absolutely. When you send out one of these messages, it automatically updates the referral to say when the last contact took place. So that's already built in. So that place that we saw when we were looking at the referral was where it said last contact date for the volunteer and last contact date for the posting agency, that would automatically get updated if you send out one of these messages. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so not too much more to cover on this one. I'm going to go back to my referral main menu here. Pardon my slow computer. I'm so glad I'm getting a new computer today. All right, so we really only have 2 more tools on this because, as I say, this is still a pretty basic tool right now. We have our referral statistics report and the ability to delete old referrals. I think the ability to delete old referrals is relatively self-explanatory. You pick a date beyond which it will remove any referrals older than that date. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Our statistics report Again, the keyword search on this is going to be broken, so I'm not even going to try. You can do a keyword search here, but on this is my development copy. My keyword searching is broken right now because of work we're doing, so I'm not even going to try and do that. I'm hoping the rest of the report will work, but it might not. Our referral statistics report allows you to do date ranges, show opportunities with a particular number of referrals. So if a given opportunity didn't get any referral, even one in the time range, you can choose whether to show it or not. So if I say opportunities with 0 or more referrals, then my report will include every position, whether or not it got a referral or not, and I can see which ones didn't get anything. Otherwise, it's going to default to 1, which means it has to have had at least 1 referral for it to come up in my report. And I can really put any number I want there, but it defaults to 1, meaning my statistical report will only show positions that actually had at least 1 referral with the rest of the criteria I specify, whether that be a date range, organization keywords, who owned the record, and so on. The purpose for the organization keywords is really for you to be able to produce a report for an agency. So if they say, I want to know how many applications I had last year for all of my positions, you would be able to type in the name of the organization, generate a report that's just for them, and produce that for them so that they would have that as a record. That's the reason why we allow you to limit by organization. We're going to do a show of placement count, but that is optional. If you do track placement information, then you can include that in your report. Not all of our members do track placement, so they don't follow up after the connection is made to see if that application was actually successful. So you wouldn't want to include that in your reports if that's not something that you follow up on, because obviously the information wouldn't be meaningful. And broken. Yeah, I'll have to do it on here. I apologize, but I can do it on the test site. Okay, didn't include, sorry, I'm going to do a placement count here. Okay, so this is what our statistical reports look like. They're broken down by the organization first, and then underneath it, all of the positions under that organization, and the number of referrals, and if I've opted to include it, also the number of placements. It's subtotal for every organization, and then there's a grand total at the end. So again, this can be constructed however you want. If you had done a search for an organization name, it would only include that one organization. If you've done it by an owner agency, it would only include records owned by that agency. If you've done it for a date range, it would only include placements in that date range that you specified. So that's a rundown, a very, very basic rundown of our referral tools. I've got a question here. Can the referral count separate between staff referrals and online applicants, asks Kelly. It can, it doesn't. So we definitely, we can tell the difference between one that was done by staff and one that was done by the public. But our current tools don't in any way differentiate. So it's something we could add, but it's not something that we have built in right now. So this is going to be completely independent of who did the application, whether it was staff on behalf of an applicant or an applicant themselves. This report doesn't distinguish between those at this time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is a really quick rundown. I have just a one-pager of things that we know are potential wants. So things we were pretty sure that we want to do with this. And then I really need input from you about what does this not do that you would like it to do, and where should we go from here. I have one more question here from Sharon. The date range also includes current postings. For example, if I want to show only 2010 postings, how do I exclude 2011 postings? Okay, so the referral statistics are independent of any information about when the position was created or open or anything like that. It's all about when that person applied. And you can limit it at both ends. So you can say happened before a specific time or happened after a specific time. but it's totally independent of when that position was created or updated or anything about the position. All of our reporting tools and searching tools for the referrals right now really only care about when they applied. So you could distinguish, did they apply in 2010, did they apply in 2011, but you couldn't tell when that position was originally put up. It's not, none of our tools really care much about the position itself, except for allowing you to search by position title or organization name to find some of your referrals. But we can't limit by when the position was posted, for example. It would only apply to when people applied. Does that clarify, Sharon? Okay. Good. All right. So we'll run quickly through my list of things that I've already heard are potential issues. And then I'd like to open it up and really find out if you know, what are you using now, what is not working for you, what would you like it to do, all that kind of good stuff. Okay. So some of the things we know, we don't have an ability to distinguish between different kinds of follow-up. So there's a difference between someone initiated this application and I need to follow up to make sure everyone was contacted, and I want to follow up to find out if this placement was successful. Those are two completely different types of follow-up, and we have no ability to distinguish between them. We have no, follow-up types. We have no follow-up notes, nothing to allow us to divide that in any way. It's either it has a flag or it doesn't have a flag. We don't have an ongoing communication log. We only know the last time that person was contacted. So if you end up doing a follow-up email, it erases the previous contact date that you had with that posting agency or that volunteer, and you have no way of remembering, oh, I also emailed them in December and I also emailed them in November. If you email them in January, that's the only date you have. So what we would prefer to have is an ongoing record of every interaction that you had about that referral, so that you can say, I didn't just email them this one time, I also emailed them all of these times. These are the contacts that I had with them. And potentially to be able to say something about what kind of contact that was, the reason for contacting them. We have nothing there to allow you to make any kind of statement about why you contacted them or any past history. The ability to have a predefined message for those follow-up messages that we can send. You have to type it in or copy and paste it in every single time you want to send one of those messages. We know that's annoying. So although it's really nice to be able to send a custom message that says whatever you want, that's a good thing. The bad part of that is if you're always sending out one particular kind of message over and over and over again, you would prefer to be able to pick from a list of frequently used messages and just say, I'm sending out a message and here is the content that I always use. I want to automatically fill it into the form. Instead, what most people have to do is save this in Notepad or something else and copy and paste it every time they want to send out one of these follow-ups. So it's definitely not the ideal. Volunteer profiles were built at a similar time frame, but slightly after our referral system. So we do need a bit better tie-in with volunteer profiles. In particular, we have no ability for the volunteer to pass on information to you through their profile. So let's say they did have a successful outcome and they want to let you know that. Right now they can record their successful outcome, but they can't say whether or not they want to pass that information on to you. It's very divided. So, and they also have no way of telling you, let's say if they did update their wrong email and they have a better email now, we don't have a way for them, their changes to their volunteer profile, to update any past referral requests that they make, so that you would have a record and a notice of the fact that they had changed their address or their phone number or their email. It would only apply to new applications that they put in. All right, I have a question. Where do you set up the volunteer profile? So this question is from Kelly. So if you don't know, Kelly, that means they're not turned on. Volunteer profiles have to be turned on at the request of the member. So it's very likely that no one from your database has ever asked for volunteer profiles to be turned on. If that's a feature that you want to use, we have a whole session that's going to be coming up. I think I've already got a date for it on volunteer profiles. So I will go over that entire process of how do you get volunteer profiles working in different views and all of that at that session. So I encourage you to go to that session. And when the time comes, if you want to use volunteer profiles, you have to send me a request. I turn it on in your database, and once it's on, it's on. I'm not going to turn it off again. And then you can turn it on in any of the views that you want to use it in. So you would first turn it on, and then you would decide explicitly to turn it on your public view so people could start using it. Kelly is asking who currently uses it. It's being used, I know for certain, in Niagara, in Peel, in Hamilton. I think of who else. Certainly all three of those are using it. I would say, Sharon, you're currently the winner in Peel with the number of profiles that you've got. You've been doing an awesome job, obviously. We've got, people with between several hundred to well over 1,000 profiles set up in their databases. So, the session is next Friday. Oh, and Chris is letting me know the session on volunteer profiles is 1 week from today. Okay, so we'll come back to the volunteer profiles in that session, and hopefully you'll get lots of background there. Okay. We've multiple times had the request to add more information to our volunteers' application forms for various reasons. So we've had some people say we need to capture a particular type of information about the volunteer in their application that they're not doing now, and we've had some people say, I want to be able to have the survey of my volunteer to either the follow-up or whatever to capture more information from that volunteer than what we do now. What we capture is very, very limited. It's basically a little bit of contact information and some notes. I mean, very, very little information, honestly. So the issue is not everybody is going to agree on what additional information that they want to capture. This is all we capture right now. That's it. So what we need to do is decide how are we going to allow people to decide what additional fields they're going to have on their forms, what they're going to capture, and what they can do with those. And largely, there may be some things everyone agrees on, like this is a really good field that most of us should be able to have access to if we want. And then there's going to be others that are nobody agrees on. So we know we need to allow some flexibility about what kind of information people are capturing, because it's not the same from one member to another, what they want to and need to capture. I have another question. Okay. Sharon has a question about the referral statistics. When she runs the dates the 1st of January to the 21st of January, the statistics are pulling opportunities that are non-public and haven't been online this year at all. So again, this is completely to do with the referral date, and if that opportunity has been, there are many ways that they could have gotten to it. Non-public, if you're blocking non-public, they shouldn't even be able to get to that form, but that's something we've discussed. Oh, Sharon is saying most of them are zero. So you can end up pulling up positions with no applications. It says, how can I exclude them from the report? It should automatically exclude them from the report if you say has at least one. I'm going to go back to that referral report menu here. If your threshold is 1, it should be excluding them. If it's 0, then it will include them. That's the way it's supposed to work. If that's not what's happening, then there's a problem. So that is supposed to be the way that you exclude it. So the issue Sharon was having is it was bringing up positions in her database that wouldn't have had any current referrals on them, and she wanted to exclude them, and this is the way that that's done, is by the threshold. Okay. So back to my last point, which is about follow-up information. This goes beyond what we have now, which is the email follow-up. and really an ability for the volunteer to provide actual data, metrics, really useful statistical responses about their application. Was I successful? Did I have a good interaction with this organization? You know, that kind of follow-up. So something like a survey or particular questions that you might want to do follow-up on. We don't have any kind of mechanism for doing that at this time. So that's what we know we need. But I'm really interested in, you know, are you using the referral tools now? What is working? What is not working? What is there an education issue with where, you know, people just aren't familiar with the tools and don't necessarily know that those features are there? And again, most of them are pretty new, so it's not entirely surprising, especially our long-term members actually tend to be at a disadvantage in this case because they get used to a particular workflow and don't even notice sometimes some of the new features that come in and that those tools are there. So the one note that I have here that is a challenge is we have a big divide between our members in terms of how involved they are in this process. And they have very distinct needs. We have, on one hand, very involved volunteer centers who really are part of that relationship building between the applicant and the posting agency. And on the other hand, we have some members who are completely and totally uninvolved in the process. They do not intervene whatsoever. They completely rely on that volunteer and that agency to connect with one another. And what they each need to support their work is going to be different, and we have to acknowledge that. So take those members that aren't involved in that communication. They likely only need to be shown the cases where the email didn't get through. So they need to have an easy way of finding out when an email didn't get sent to the posting agency so that they can do a follow-up just in those cases. So we have to acknowledge the different needs that people are going to have. Okay, I've got a question. Okay, Kelly was saying that she did not know that it updated it when it emailed out, so that's good. Okay, so I'm actually going to unmute everyone now so that we can all chat and hear what we have to say. So give me one moment, please. Lillian, it looks like I can't unmute you. I think you don't have an audio pin in your phone. So I've unmuted everyone but Lillian. I'll get a little bit more noise on the line now, just so everyone's aware. I think I have a couple of outstanding questions that I will address, but anyone feel free to jump in and chat. Find my questions here.
Hi, it's Sharon. I have a quick suggestion for Kelly, because I know she was suggesting talking about the volunteer profiles.
Yes.
Kelly, my suggestion is actually create a profile for yourself once it's turned on, if it's not currently turned on, because that's what I do, and it gives me just kind of the inside view as to what the profile does and how it all works. I know we get a lot of calls here at our center from people who are using their logins and they're having some questions. So
okay.
I would definitely suggest that if you have your profile running on your Vol module to actually create one for yourself.
Now, does it email out, or is it just strictly for them to track the positions that they have applied for?
Yeah, what happens actually, and I'm sure Kate can add to this, is if they check off certain interests that they have, as new volunteer postings come up that match the criteria they fill out in their posting, in their profile rather, they actually do get an email that says, here's a new posting for you to consider. And so it's
that does sound good.
That's the whole that's the robust side of the database. It's constantly letting the volunteers know what different opportunities might be a good fit for them.
Now, is it set how many emails they get in case they are swamped?
Nope. I don't believe so, Kate. Maybe you can answer that. I think it's just based on their interest in whatever criteria they've put in their profile.
Yep, so they say what they want to get sent, and we do not send out, so they can be really specific about how much they want to get. And we also only send out an email a day that has all the listings. So they're never going to get emails flying at them all day long. That's not the way it's built. So what will happen is, and I don't even think it runs every day, I think it actually runs either 4 or 5 days a week, maybe not even that much. I'd have to look at what the schedule is, but it runs at very particular times. It looks what's been either new or updated since the last time they sent an email or the last time we checked, and it'll only give them what's changed since then. And they can specify, I only want brand new opportunities, or I want ones that have been updated. They can be really specific about how much they want to be told. So really they have a lot of control over how much they're getting.
Oh, that's excellent. Currently I do that through Outlook the manual way.
Ouch.
It's terrible.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so the issue I think is, as I say, people like yourself, who your organization has had the volunteer stuff for a really long time, and unfortunately that often ends up being a disadvantage because people are so used to the way they've done it, they may not even know when the new features come in and that they can be making use of these. So definitely come on Friday next week, and I expect that's a session where we're going to go through a lot of detail about the features. So you should be able to learn a lot at that session.
Okay, I am signed up for that, and I'm looking forward to it too.
Great. Okay, Lillian, you are unmuted now.
Great. Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome. So yeah, this is, as I say, this is pretty new. I was surprised myself when I went back and I looked at when we had put this in, how recent it really was. Because it blows my mind that only 3 years ago you had no record of any of these things happening. That blows my mind that it was, we've had this for such a short period of time. But I don't know if anyone uses the tools well enough now to really know what you'd like to see changed. I don't know. You can let me know.
It's Lillian. Excuse me, Lillian here.
Yep.
Can we respond to your, you know how you said the possible things that you might want to do? Do you want us to give you a sense of what we think is more important or less? Or?
Yeah, so all of the way, you can certainly now, but what's going to happen is we're going to assemble what is going to be a ridiculous amount of different, all of these things that we come up with, all of these ideas, and the prioritizing exercise we do is going to allow every member to take each suggestion and say how important that one suggestion is to them.
Okay, so we'll just put all of these suggestions up and any new suggestions and then do some analysis of priority. That's right. And, and that'll be not just people on this call, but everybody, so that even if you're not on a given call, you'll still have a chance to give feedback. And that will happen all at the end. And really, there will be hundreds. It's going to take each member some time to go through. What we want to do at these sessions is make sure you understand them well enough to decide if it's important to you or not. Right?
Lillian, sorry, it's Barb. Lillian, did you have some new suggestions?
No, not particularly. You know, it's funny because I used to have some about referral, but now I can't remember. I know I was searching by, I wanted to search by owner and by date, and I couldn't do both. Because you know we're in a big merge database, so I wanted to just get Midlands, but just in the month of February. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Oh, you can do that now. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, as long as you fill out both parts of the form. And pardon my slow computer here. I'm going to go back to the referral main menu. If you pick owner and a date range both, that's fine, right? So you can do both the records owned by.
Yeah, it was something, I don't know. I don't know what I was trying to get it. But
if it didn't work, that's a bug that you should report.
Okay, maybe I should have.
Work. So if you do find that you try and do that search and it doesn't work, you should let us know right away, because that definitely should work. You should definitely be able to do any of the combination of things on here together at the same time and have it work.
Right. Okay. But one of the things I did want to respond to then, you know, your application form, having maybe different or more fields. I like to stress that if we could have a couple of fields that we could sort of do on an ad hoc basis, or add or change on an ad hoc basis, that'd be great. But I know one of the things that I needed was to know what age my volunteers were, because my funders wanted to know if I had seniors volunteering and how many.
Yes, see, if you use the volunteer profile tool, you can get that information.
But can I get the volunteer profile information?
Yeah, so on an aggregate basis, you can.
Okay,
so,
on an aggregate, okay, shoot.
Yeah, but that would only apply to people who had profiles, and you have to be using the volunteer profile tool. Which come on Friday, we'll go through all those. But
good, I will. I took note of that.
And really, these two, they happen at almost the same time, and they really do work together very well in that they both provide sort of connected benefits. But in terms of things like statistics about where people are looking, or how old they are, or what kinds of opportunities they want, this volunteer profile statistical tool is awesome for that.
Okay.
And can I also suggest too, like, since now, like, if we can pull up the referrals and do those mass emails, you can actually do a Survey Monkey and even just send them a survey link to be filling out some of that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you don't know it at first that you need to know it. Yeah, that's a good idea. And has there ever been a question about actually doing a registry of the agencies, not the volunteers? Like, they're in there once, and then once and they post another opportunity another time, and it kind of pre-fills for them, but it also helps us know who the agencies are, the organizations, and then we can use that potentially as a communications tool as well.
So, can you clarify that for me again, Lily? I'm not sure I understand.
You know how you do a volunteer profile where they have to kind of register and give their information, and then you can tap that information? Do the same for the agencies that are putting in the opportunities, so that you kind of have their bare bones information in another registry, if you will.
Well, that would be the member area.
Yeah, so there's the membership management for that, and also, I mean, it's so tightly tied to their community information record. That's a little tricky. But Sharon's right that the closest thing we have to that is our membership management area, where you can do some reporting and record some extra information on an individual agency that really is about them and all their opportunities together. So a lot of that would tie into the membership management area. And maybe some of that is opening a door to the public for them of some of their membership management area, so that they, with a login, could review that sort of thing. But we have to tie it into a lot of the tools we already have, because we already address a number of them. For instance, you can really easily send them a generic notice to an agency showing them the listing of all the opportunities they have in the database, providing them a sort of a, anytime you want to add a new opportunity, here's a customized form for you to add a new opportunity for your organization. That we already have. So it's sort of, how do we build on that? And probably what we need to do is find out.
How do you do them? How are you suggesting we do that currently? By copying the record? Because they can't really do that. Otherwise, I don't really see how the volunteer member organization does that.
So you're thinking of a way for them to copy an existing opportunity? Is that what you're thinking, or?
Well, just to get the basic information, like their address, contact.
Well, the address information is in the community information record. So that doesn't, the contact isn't, though. I mean, there are things that would be basically, grabbed from one to another if they always have the same contact person, for example.
I think, Kate,
they have to retype that. It doesn't auto-fill in.
Yeah, when they're filling out a new volunteer posting, I think that's the biggest beef we have here in Peel as well, is when they submit a new record, a new volunteer posting, they have to fill in all of their information every single time. There's no autofill. So actually she's right. If there's a way, a tool that like that member ID number that belongs to them, that if they were to key that in, that it would automatically populate the record with their contact information. That would be really cool.
Which fields would you want it to populate?
When you're actually suggesting a new volunteer opportunity, creating a new posting.
I'm thinking which particular field. So let me go for a moment to a new blank feedback form.
It'd probably be the main contact area and the organizational name, right?
For this? The organization name, so if you send them out an email, you can give them a custom link that will automatically fill the organization name in for them. So that we already have.
How do you do that?
Okay, so I have to go to an existing opportunity.
Okay.
Oh, just a minute. Or an agency that's got, you know what, I'll just do it from an agency that's got records. Let me go to the CIC for a second here. There's a couple of ways to get at it, but I'm going to go, my computer is so slow, bad computer. Here we go. So I'm just going to pick something here. I'm in the test site. Okay. So I'm used to working in my own here. Okay. So we have email update all volunteer opportunities requests. What a really awkward name, but
where are you right now? I'm trying to picture where you are.
I'm in this CIC record, but the same could be true if I went into an individual volunteer opportunity.
Okay.
And so let's say I go into dance instructor here. Again, I really apologize. My computer is so slow today. Down in the agency section here, create new opportunity for this agency, email update all opportunities request. So if you say create new opportunity for this agency, or if I'm not logged in, it would be a suggestion. Email update all opportunities request is something for you to send this agency a specialized email. Okay.
It doesn't put in though. It doesn't autofill even using that method.
It should. What do you mean it doesn't autofill? It should fill in the organization name.
Mine doesn't.
Yeah, but that's on an existing posting though.
No, I mean for new. So they go to this URL to suggest a new opportunity with this organization. Let me just, I actually have to put the record number in because it doesn't have it.
No, because even if you say create new opportunity on any of those, if you say
no,
create
they
new
don't.
opportunity,
I've tried them both ways.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
it puts in the number, the organization record number in the org record number field, but everything else is blank.
Right, right. But that's what I was saying. All it does is do the organization for you. So it says now you are suggesting a new record for the organization, Dancing Homer. So it's automatically making the connection to the community information record that has the address, the phone number, the whatever else is connected to that organization.
But
then
we have to type it in.
What are you typing in though? I'm not understanding.
The name of the organization,
no,
the contact person, their address, their telephone number.
Run through this suggestion and
okay.
show what happens.
So I'm not sure why you're, so is this for an existing organization? I don't know why you're typing that in, because it's all tied to the community information record.
Well, because the contact person would be the volunteer coordinator. The organization, I guess, would be at the top if they saw that. They type in their telephone number.
Yeah, so the part I'm saying that we don't do is we don't copy the contact from one, and that is because it's not necessarily the same. I mean, we could quite easily have ways for it to say, you know, if you've already got other opportunities with this organization where it would make it really easy for you to pick an existing contact and have it autofill the contact information in. But I'm not sure what else on this form other than that contact field that you would want it to fill in.
The phone number, the email.
But there's no phone number and email on this form. It's all in the community information side.
No, it's not.
No, if you go to, you actually need to get into a volunteer record. If you, Kate, can you go on a volunteer record and just see a posting for a sec, just so we can see it on screen for a sec? Okay, so see where it says create new no, stay on that one.
Yeah.
And then go to create new opportunity at the bottom.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Yeah. I'm there.
Okay, create new opportunity.
Yeah.
Is it going? Oh, there it is. So all it's doing is putting in the org record number.
That's right.
And you're missing a whole bunch of fields that we have Like there's like a whole section where it's name, email, phone number, all that kind of the contact info
that's
there.
The contact, right? But that's all one field, the contact field.
I know, but what I think, and I'm sorry, is this Sarah saying this or is this Lillian that was asking the question? Oh, Kelly, sorry. So what Kelly is saying that it doesn't populate anything other than the link between the volunteer posting and the CIC record. And her question, I think, and if I was to understand correctly, is there any way at some point in time that it could populate the contact information as well?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is there anything other than the contact field that you would want populated? So I'm getting that you want to do the contact field. I totally get that.
All of its pieces, including the email and the fax and the phone number and the name.
That's all one field, the contact field, which has the contact's name, their title, their organization, their phone, their email, and so on. That's all one field called contact.
Yeah, so Kelly, is that right? You would hope that to be populated, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And
I agree.
I was thinking that too, Lillian. That was one of the things I thought.
What we can do pretty easily, if you are suggesting a new record for an agency that has previously done a posting, is we can look up the previous contacts that have been provided and make it possible for them to pick from a previous contact and then have it fill the contact field in. What I was saying was I can't see that there's anything other than the contact field that you would want to pre-populate.
Well, even previously on that contact field, it used to be a drop-down box that if you'd previously put the person's name in, it would come up, but that no longer does that.
Well, it wasn't a drop-down box. What it was is your browser's autofill, which is
okay.
The same. So,
does that mean it got turned off?
No, it still has, yeah, but that got turned off a long time ago, and the reason was actually, and this is pretty bad, we had to turn autofill off because what we were having happen is people were installing things called toolbars, like the Google toolbar, for example, that was trying to be smart about filling forms out, and it was automatically putting in their personal information, like personal information, into every form they went to, where it recognized contact information. And we were getting these submissions with people in a total panic because their personal private information had been being submitted on forms that had nothing to do with what they had actually filled out themselves, and it was these Google toolbars that were doing it. And the only way around it was to turn autofill off. So we had no choice because these stupid toolbars, were going and automatically filling things out in the forms without people asking them to. It was
okay. I didn't realize that.
And quite a major security problem that we were having, and people were phoning our agencies and saying, you know, how did you get my personal information? You know, it totally panicked and upset. So we had to turn it off because it was such a major issue for any of these people who had installed these toolbars. And we can't go to the public and say, you're not allowed to use Google Toolbar on our site. I mean, there's not a lot we could have done about it except turn that off. But that said, it doesn't mean that we can't have a similar capability built into the software, but we have to control it, and we have to do it in a smarter way because we can't allow things like the toolbar, the Google Toolbar, to accidentally populate the wrong information into these fields.
No, that makes sense.
It was quite a kerfuffle for a while on the message boards with some very upset people who it was really, they had installed the toolbars. There was nothing we could do about the fact that they had installed these toolbars, but it was pretty bad.
On the CIC side, you have multiple contact fields, and it was picking up anything that had a field name of phone, and it was putting the phone number in.
Yeah, it was a disaster.
So if there was phone anywhere in the field name,
it was putting their personal phone number in. So every single one of the contacts, and then the community information side, they have 5. And it was filling all 5 out with their personal information. It was a disaster. So that's why that was...
Okay. Well,
yeah.
But while we're still on the contact form,
yes.
When it has been updated, when we now have phone number 1, 2, 3, fax, email, Is there any way we can remove some of those, or are people using all of those? Finding the forms longer and longer.
I know. So we standardized on a new contact format for many reasons, mainly that we had no ability to get the phone numbers out when it was all in a big blob of text and people were sort of typing free-for-all text and having multiple phone numbers in the same field. It meant that you couldn't actually do anything with those numbers in terms of reporting and so on. In the volunteer side, I know that you're likely not using them, but we do have instances where people are providing multiple phone numbers, like home, work, pager, for example.
Toll-free.
Yeah, so we do end up having cases where people need the multiple phone numbers, and that's why it ends up being there. And I do understand that it makes the form really big. I'm very sympathetic to that, and we are still looking to especially improve the feedback process, how the feedback information comes in and so on. So, you know, we know there's some things to be improved there, but that's going to be more in our data management session. So we can try and come back. We definitely will talk about the contact fields then. But
see, for me, I think the phone number, the thing that I'm missing the most is the update button, because now I have to either physically retype the number or I have to right-click and highlight and copy-paste, which it's an extra step.
If you highlight and drag, that is the key. Highlight and drag works really well.
Problem with me is I have Skype on my computer, so as soon as I try to highlight it, it automatically tries to call it through Skype.
Oh!
You can turn that off. That's an extension, and you can turn that off in your browser if you go into your extensions and just, unless you particularly want Skype to be calling people through the things in your, but that is, you can turn that off.
I can? Okay, I'll have to look to do that, because that's been driving me crazy.
Every time I go on to Skype, or you get an update of Skype, I have to go through this flurry of, like I have 6 browsers, and it installs the plugin in 6 browsers. So I go into another browser, I'm like, there's more Skype stuff.
Yeah. So, but that's something we know we need to address. That's really an important issue that we know we have to do something about. So definitely we'll be looking at improving that. That's a pretty major thing for us. So it's a hard compromise between making the form look nice and simple and small for the public, because we don't want them to have a huge crazy form, and making it easy for our data managers. So it's a tough problem, but it is one we know we need to work on improving. So that's already for sure on our list. And certainly we can see about auto-populating that contact information. What we can potentially do, which is easy, is check if that organization always uses the same contact, meaning every active opportunity that they have has the same contact, then when they come to that, that form that I showed you where it was the feedback form, let me go to it again. And this would actually be quite a simple change from my perspective, where it already knows the organization. So there's a particular form that you can send out that has the number of the organization in it, and this is linked from the record, and it's also something you can send the organization in an email, where it already knows the organization you're suggesting for. It would be very easy for me to go and check their existing opportunities that are current, and if they all have the same contact information, then I can easily put it in this form. And honestly, if they didn't like it, they could just change it. That's easy for me. So that's certainly something that we can do. That will fall under our data management topics, and I'll make sure that it's on the list for that. And we probably are going to end up breaking the data management into 2. I'm doubtful that we're going to get through everything we need to in the one section. But that's not hard. That's not hard. It's not a lot of extra work. And we do have to acknowledge that some organizations have different contacts for different positions. So it's a compromise between determining for those organizations that always use the same person, like they have a dedicated volunteer coordinator who is always the contact person, and for those that may have different contacts for different positions, we have to support both. So it's always a balancing act between making it easy for most of the cases where they have the same contact, but still making it possible for the cases where they have a different contact to provide something different.
Okay, Kate, I have a few more quick questions. I am conscious of the time, so we might have to take some of this offline. But can I just ask, there's a couple really things that are driving me crazy is when I have an agency that has a posting that has expired and it's a non-public record, how do I send that link to them so they can view it and reactivate it? Because of course, if I send them the link as it is, as a non-public record, it won't let them see it. It's saying this record's not found.
Yeah, they can get to the feedback form. So you can still send them an update request by email, and it will.
So I have to use the email update request link in order for them to see that posting?
Yeah.
That's the only way. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll send them directly to the feedback form. They will not be able to access the record details page because it will be blocked, but they will be able to access the feedback form to suggest changes to you.
So the email update request form can be sent on a non-public record?
Absolutely. Any record, okay. Expired, non-public, deleted even, anything.
Okay. Next question. Again, I'll try to make this quick. How do you stop people from doing what I call spam referrals? For example, we had last year one individual who was creating referrals every single day, and in fact, in total created 98 referrals multiple times to the same organization. I had no way of stopping this person from doing this. We called them, we emailed them, we said, please stop doing this. How can we do this?
If they have a volunteer profile, you can now block that profile. So that's the one thing. You can actually go in and disable their profile. It doesn't prevent them from making another one with another email address, but you can go in and disable their volunteer profile. That's just one step. It's at least a signal to them that they're misbehaving. Other than that, if you have an ongoing problem with someone, you should contact Chris and I, because we have the ability to actually block them right out of the application.
Okay, so you can block an email, like if they're putting in a specific email, you can block that.
It has to be a really serious issue. Most of our blocking tools do it by IP address, and that's necessarily unique to one person, and so it has to be done very carefully. We don't currently have any ability to block by email, but if we came up with a situation where you had such a significant problem that it needed to be addressed, we would find a way to address it for you. I mean, we're not going to leave you helpless while somebody spams the heck out of you. So you should absolutely be in touch with us. If you've exhausted your ability to stop that person, or you have no idea how to get in touch with them to stop them, then you should talk to us and we will help you. Certainly you don't have to just let it happen. You know,
yeah, well, there's a positive side to that story. We finally did get a hold of the individual and found out it was a student who was desperately trying to complete their 40 hours. And then we were able to say to them, okay, come on in and talk to us and let's do a consultation and let's get you the right opportunity. So it worked out in the end, but it just kind of that red flag, you know, rose very high when I saw that happening.
Yeah. And if that happens, so we have the blocks, some blocks in place to prevent automated spamming. That's why we have that weird date check on all our forms. And it actually is incredibly effective, weirdly, and more effective than CAPTCHAs. Actually, we put in a CAPTCHA first. If no one knows what a CAPTCHA is, that's where you have to. They show you a picture of a bunch of letters to type them out. Well, we tried using
that thing,
and the spammers just went right through it. It didn't help at all. So we took that out and we made our own CAPTCHA. Which is the date thing, and it's amazingly effective. It actually really does a good job of keeping out the non-human being spammers. So we have that in place as a basic check that the person who's filling out the form is an actual person. And that, as I say, has worked well for robots. But if you have a person who is determined, then you can, if you have a huge problem, be in touch with us, and we will help you.
Great. Now, last quick question. I'm going to go back to that whole section that you had about pulling off the referral stats, and perhaps this is something we might have to take offline. But for me, now that I know kind of exactly how that works, for me, I know you told me to put the number 1 in the threshold, but quite frankly, in 2010, I'd also want to know which referrals did not receive any, or which postings didn't receive any referrals during the year of 2010. So 0 actually is the number that I need in there. But how do we, is there any?
Post on the message board. Post for that particular case. If you have something odd, I mean, we can build in a tool. But the reality is any kind of search that you need that would bring up postings, if we don't have a search for it, post on the message board, and we'll give you a block of code that you stick into that SQL box, and then you save it as a saved search, and you'll be able to bring it up anytime you want. So for that one where you're looking for show me all the postings that had no referrals, I could really quickly throw together a little, one-liner that you would put in your SQL box and would bring up all those opportunities for you.
Yeah, basically what I would need, like in the volunteer posting, I would need it to pull at the field date created for that volunteer posting of 2010 only, and that's the code I would need. Okay, so I can send that to you.
That's really easy. You just if you describe what your search is, all you have to do is put up a post, and I respond immediately and will give you some code to run your own search, because that happens. We can't account for every kind of search that everyone's going to need to do, and sometimes people need some really complicated, strange searches that we're not going to build in, and so that's why we have that lovely SQL box, is so that you can come on and say, I need a search that does X. We'll give you some code to stick in that box, and immediately you have a search for that. So no problem.
Wonderful. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left, and you thought this would be a short one. This has been fun.
We've covered some other topics. It's been
wonderful stuff. So can I just run through, Kelly? Any last comments or questions?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty much covered it. I realize now I definitely don't know how to use it, and I didn't know that we didn't have volunteer profile put on.
Yeah. Oh, there's always more to know. Things. Wonderful. Okay, Lillian?
Are we in data management, Kate, going to talk about the whole community issue? Communities, community lists, how we're having trouble with our merged database and having enough communities and stuff?
The communities one is we can potentially try and touch that. That is actually one that I would likely address in our catch-all, which is sort of at the end. We have a bunch of volunteer and CIC topics that don't really fit in with anything else.
Okay.
We're going to have a more general session that isn't about any one topic, not any one big topic anyway. And that's where we're going to end up catching a lot of those sort of weird things that don't fit with anything else. Okay. So it's certainly something that I think we'll want to look at and address. And some of it is it's not that we can't do it in the tools we have. We just have to know how to set it up effectively. Right. And so some of it is a bit of a training education issue, and some of it is, can we make the tools a little easier or better for that situation that you have? Mm-hmm. But it's weird. Like, I wouldn't run a whole session on that, but it doesn't really fit in with the other things. So that's the type of thing that I would likely pick for, we might even have 2 general sessions, honestly, depending on how much we need to serve. Yeah. That's going to be near the end, where we're going to have lots of these sort of one-off, doesn't fit in with anything else kind of items.
Okay. The other one I had is, if you recall, when people don't put in a location in the number of positions field, it makes a real mess for I think because we have a huge merged database. So I'm wondering if this would be a data management thing where you have to somehow make it mandatory that you have to have a community. Yeah. That your number of positions has to have a community. Yeah. Is that data management?
Yeah, and we actually we sort of touched on that in an earlier session on the searching session. We talked a bit about but it's going to come up. I mean, none of these fit perfectly in any one session. I mean, these things all relate to each other in some way, right? So we did already talk about that whole issue with making sure you fill out the number of positions and how some people don't want to provide a number and the challenges with that. So it's something we've certainly flagged as an issue. So it's going to turn up when we have that final list of things we need to address. It's something that's going to turn up on that list for sure. And it's certainly something that would fittingly end up in the data management. What I may end up, right now I think I have 1 session for data management. What may end up happening, in fact will likely end up happening, is that session will be a general session that applies to everyone. So there's certain things that community information and volunteer do that are almost exactly the same. And that session is likely to focus on those things. And then it's It's probable that we'll splinter off at that point and have 2 tiny sessions that are just about, one that's just for the volunteer group to address some specific data management concerns that only apply to the volunteer software, and the same would be true for the community information. That's what I expect is likely to happen. And that's, I mean, I'm trying to keep these sessions short, but really the amount that we have to cover, that's why we have so many. We have a lot to cover. I mean, data management alone it's a humongous topic. So, yes, I think
one of them that probably, I don't know where it fits also, is doing updates on both the CIC side and the volunteer side. I don't know about other people, but we have a hard time getting agencies to update their information.
Yeah, that's something that would definitely be in a data management session, and likely, if it's the kind of thing that really applies to both, that's something that we would have as an open discussion in a general session. And I think the more I think about it, the more I think it's likely that we'll then have a follow-up session just for the volunteer users to talk about some of the specific issues that you have, like those number of positions, like the communities potentially, if we figure that that fits in well. Anything that is really unique to the work that you do and different from what the community information does. And likewise, you don't want to have to listen to reams and reams of what the community information side does if it's not applicable to what you're doing. So there's going to be a point where we probably are going to want to splinter off.
Okay, great. Lillian, anything else?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Barb.
No, good. Sarah?
She just said I'm good, but she's in the other room. I heard her. I couldn't hear her.
Oh, okay, good. And Sharon?
Just one quick thing. Just one quick thing. I think Lillian was talking about, like, you can actually set the community fields to be mandatory so that people have to fill in a number for volunteers, do you not? And actually on that point, my mandatory field, someone can submit a record without filling out all those fields. And is that due to the fact that we've done an upgrade and something's turned off now, or?
Well, so
all of my little red check boxes where I have them on all the fields that I indicated that it's a required field that has to be filled out, that doesn't matter anymore. It seems that people can actually submit a blank form to me without filling any of those fields out.
Yeah, no, there's never been a requirement for the public. The public can submit anything they want. They could submit you complete and total garbage. There's no data validation on what the public submits whatsoever. There never has been. And that is because it's very difficult to put requirements on the public. They'll get
but there's a check box that I click off saying it's a required field. And previously, if I remember correctly,
never ever did it ever do anything for the public ever. Never. We've never. I mean, if you were lucky. If everyone was always submitting those required fields to you, you were just lucky, because there's never been a requirement for the public. They can completely ignore the required field thing completely.
Is that on the staff side then?
On the staff side, you have an option of making your required fields truly required.
There you go.
On the volunteer, Chris is saying. Okay, so on the volunteer, we didn't do any of the required. No, I didn't think
we didn't do it, but it's not a difficult thing to put in. It's just like the stuff it does is generic.
In the community information side, it will actually yell at you. If you set it up in your agency, it will actually yell at you if you don't fill out the required fields. But Chris is saying he didn't, and that makes sense because the funder was a community information person, that it doesn't carry over. But the reality is that with the work we're doing right now, in terms of the development we're working on at the moment, the volunteer code is about to look a lot more like the community information code. So likely that's going to come in the next release anyway, just because they're going to be all running the same. They're going to be working the same behind the scenes, and right now they don't. Right now our updating code for our volunteer software is completely different from our updating code for our community information software, because the volunteer software doesn't support French. They operate differently. And as of the next release, they're both going to be bilingual, and therefore they're both going to run a lot of the same software code. So having that required stuff in place is pretty much a given. But even then, it's only going to apply to staff. It will never apply to the public. And that is because as I say, it's very difficult to put restrictions on the public. And in general, all they would have to do to bypass it is turn JavaScript off. So it's very challenging to really demand very much of the public, and we let them type in pretty much anything. They don't have to conform to the same rules that you do. So even a date, if you entered in a date that wasn't a date, the software would yell at you and wouldn't let you submit it. If the public entered in a date that was complete garbledygook, it would allow them to submit it. With the intention that you make it as easy as possible for the public to submit information to you, and you leave it to the skilled managers, data managers, to interpret that information in an acceptable format.
Okay. Sharon, anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
No? Okay. Any last comments, folks?
Nope, that was wonderful.
Okay. Kate, that was terrific.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Kate.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your feedback and your ideas.
Great.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody.
I'm sure I'll see most of you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.